Namaskar. Welcome to this session of the program Master of Arts in Sustainability Science, one and the only program offered in India in the area of sustainability science. Today, it is in this session of Master of Arts in Sustainability Science, we are going to discuss on the course MSD019 Global Strategies to Sustainable Development, a brief overview. In the last 7 courses, we have looked into the basic foundation of sustainable development, sustainability science, the 3 dimensions, important dimensions of sustainable development: ecological foundation, environmental foundation, and social foundation. Even look into the 4 pillars of institutional, that's foundation. As we know that achieving sustainable development is not an easy task. And we are evidence that due to increase in human population, our nature-society interaction is not in harmonious way, and because of that, environmental degradation is happening. So, to look into how environmental degradation is happening, and then there is a need to balance those interaction between nature and society, the global efforts which is happening from the last few decades needs to be understood as a student of sustainability science. So, the major objective of this course, that global strategies to sustainable development, is to give an overview, to study an overview about sustainable development goals, in the sense that how the genesis and concept of SDGs, how we reach to our global common effort of sustainable development, reach to sustainable development goals to be achieved by 2030. It can be looked into when we go back to some of the major milestones. We will be able to understand that when 1960s, when the first publication, one very famous publication, The Silent Spring by Raquel Carson, when it was published, we across the world, people across the world, different institution, organization realized the way environmental degradation, the magnitudes of its impact, whatever we have done to nature, which come that impact to us. Then after that, global common efforts started through different conventions, through different conferences. So today in this session, some of the major milestones towards these directions can be looked into. Those milestones are, and we can look into the first international gathering that was happened in Stockholm, that United Nations Stockholm Conference. Then we know the Brundtland Commission report, Our Common Future. Then after 20 years after UN Stockholm Conference, the Earth Summit, as we call the United Nations Convention on Environment and Development, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 1992. Then we have Millennium Summit in New York, US, 2000. Then we have Rio Plus 10, Rio Plus 20, and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Initiative that was implemented in United Nations Sustainable Development Summit in 2015. When we look back to what was happened and how the global family of different nations convened in United Nations Stockholm Conference, that is 1972. That UN Stockholm Conference, that was, a number of states head of the states, including the then Prime Minister of India, Srimati Indira Gandhi, that took key roles in that United Nations Stockholm Conference. The major focus of that particular that United Nations Stockholm Conference was on the international concern for environment and degradation. Now, in that conference, a set of 26 principles were adopted by the member states to ensure the preservation and sound management of environmental resources. Right. The action plan, the output, some of the major output, I will not go into details about what are the different outputs of that UN Stockholm Conference. We know that major focus of that UN Stockholm Conference was the global common awareness, bringing global common awareness about environmental issues, especially the relation between poverty and environmental degradation, right? Some of the action which was adopted during the conference can be looked into three major components. One is Global Environment Assessment Program, or a WATS plan. Then different environmental management activities. Then the third one is the international measures to support assessment and management activities to be carried out at the national and international levels. So, these major outcomes, another major outcomes of this UN Stockholm Conference is, constitution of United Nations Environment Program. And the 5th June, which is today we are celebrating as World Environment Day, it was designated this in that UN Stockholm Day that 5th June should be celebrated as UN this World Environment Day. The major reason behind that is, if we celebrate a specific day as World Environment Day, this will give an awareness, global awareness about various environmental issues, and that will pave the way for the formulation of environmental laws and treaties. That exactly was happened. After that, we have a number of conference and conferences, conventions like that UN Environment Education conferences, then the Ramsar Convention, and so on. Number of the conventions was there at international level. Then, when we realize the magnitudes of that environmental degradation because of human activities, then the Brundtland, the United Nations, that General Assembly on 19 December 1983 constituted that World Commission of Environment Development on 19 December. The major aim of this constitution of this World Commission on Environment Development under the chairperson of Dr. Gro Harlem Brundtland is to formulate a global agenda for change and to propose environmental strategies for achieving sustainable development by the year 2000 and beyond. Right. So, this World Commission on Environment Development, which was constituted in 1983, they submitted a report. Today, that report we call Our Common Future, and that was submitted in 1987, defined sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the future generation without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. According to that report, sustainable development, as you know, that implies the basic needs of all, which fulfill everyone that has the opportunity to accomplish their aspiration for a better life. And that report also emphasized that sustainable development is a process of change in which resource utilization, investment, technological development, and institutional change, they are met consistent according to the present as well as for the future needs, means for the future generation. Our common future that reports all, as we know, it's a watershed, that's a watershed movement, and the term sustainable development was technically introduced in the global platform, in academic platform in this report. And the report itself outlined a new approach to environment and development, and that's also stressed on a balance between environment and protection. When we follow the process of development, we have to protect the environment, social equity should be bring, and economic growth should be there. Means development doesn't mean that when we understand that environmental degradation is happening, doesn't mean that we have to stop everything in the name of development. It means that development should be there with due consideration of the environment with social equity and economic growth, right? So after that, we have one of the biggest gathering after 20 years of Stockholm Conference is the Earth Summit, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, 1992. That was held in from 3 to 14 June 1992, right? That's we commonly call as UNCED, United Nations Convention on Environment Development. Representative including head of the states, scientists, diplomats, politicians, NGOs, journalists, and the students across 179 countries, and many international and national organizations and institutions was also participated in that conference. That summit recognized the need for a new perspective of human lifestyle, decision-making process, and integration of economic, social, and environmental dimension. So, when we talk about in the United Nations Stockholm Conference, our concern was environment versus development only, environment and that quality. Here, we are looking into that how we have to integrate socio-economic and that environment and that sustainability. There are a number of achievements which is associated with this UNCED. Few of the key achievements are, the Rio Declaration, which contains 27 universal principles. Then United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is one of the global challenges towards in meeting sustainable development, the climate change. So United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was one of the output. The Convention on Biological Diversity, with a major focus on conservation of biological diversity. The Declaration on the Principle of Forest Management, the role of forests in environmental conservation, improving livelihood, social equity, economic growth, etc. And Agenda 21, means Agenda for 21st century. These are the major output of that UNCED. Then, in between, different international process and commissions meeting was happen, but one of the major follow of our UNCED is next to after 8 years we have Millennium Summit that was happening in New York, US, the headquarters, United Nations headquarters. Leaders from 189 UN members were gathered there and agreed to set out goals to be achieved by the year 2015 and this goal is Christian in is the Millennium Development Goals, as we call as MDG, and specific indicators and targets where it is with each and every goal. If you look into this Millennium Development Goals, it concerns about, from the individual level. That's when we talk about the UN Stockholm Conference. In that time, we were, more concerned about poverty and environment degradation. Then, in 1992, our concern was looking from a holistic approach, integration of that environment, economic growth, social concern that means social equity. So what are the barriers in achieving that? Globally, if you look, that poverty is one of the biggest challenges to eradicate poverty. So if you look into Millennium Development Goals, the 8 goals, the first goal is that eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. The measure M of that MDG 1 is to halve the proportion of people whose daily income, which is defined as poverty, was less than $1.25 a day and suffer from hunger. So it also aims to eradicate extreme poverty. To achieve this MDG 1 is full and productive employment, because this poverty and hunger is directly related to your job opportunity employment, as well as decent work for all, including young people and women, right? Again, the second that MDG is to achieve universal primary education. As we know that one of the major barriers to eradicate extreme poverty and hunger is illiteracy. So we need to bring universal primary education. So the MDG 2, for achieving primary education, the major aim was that children all over the world had complete access to primary education by 2015. Then we have MDG 3. Social equality, gender equality should be there. So to promote gender equality and empowering the women is the third goals of MDG. To eliminate gender disparity in primary and secondary education in that time when we were in 2005, and all levels of education by 2015. So then, child mortality is one of the major issues. So reduce child mortality is the goal number 4. Then maternal health, improve maternal health, goal number 4. Goal number 5. Then we have combat major diseases, HIV, AIDS, malaria, etc. Then goal number 7 is on ensure environment and sustainability. When we talk about environment sustainability, it is the integrating the principle of sustainable development into, because when up to goal 6, we can say that it is from goal 1. The goal 1 is individual level. The level, we are broadening the level to minimize disparity, right? So when we talk about environment and sustainability, then policy programs play an important role. So to ensure environment and sustainability, we need to integrate all the national policies and programs along with reduction in biodiversity loss and access to safe and clean drinking water, because we know that the environment degradation is a major concern. When environment degradation is a major concern, biodiversity component of different component of environment is affecting, right? So the last goal of MDG is develop a global partnership for development. So the main goal of this MDG-8 is to develop open, predictable, non-discriminatory trading and economic system along with addressing the needs for underdeveloped countries, small island nation. In the sense that when we look into the global economic condition or we look into the livelihood that situation across the world, all are not uniform. There are a lot of disparity. So when we are going to implement those goals, that a process to achieve those goals, we have to help each other. The global partnership is important. That is one of the major objective, last objective of that Millennium Development Goals. Okay. Then after 2 years, we had Johannesburg Summit, right? That is a World Summit on Sustainable Development, and it is just after 10 years of our UNCD. That's, we also call it at Rio Plus 10. That was organized between 26 August to 4 September 2002. And this, in this, no, it is a common release statement was released. That's we call as Johannesburg Declaration. What was that declaration? The declaration is to reaffirm global commitment towards achieving sustainable development through poverty eradication, human development, multilateral partnership as encompassed with Agenda 21 and what we talk that is before 2002 UN the Rio Plus 10 was happened. That was UN Millennium that Summit, that is MDG-8, right? Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. Then then this has in that way, then we started to work towards Rio Plus 20. So sometimes we tag ASN follow up to that Rio and towards progressing for another 10 years. That's we call we sometimes started to work for a road towards Rio Plus 20. So in this UN that Rio Plus 10 UN Commission on Sustainable Development was established to follow up the Agenda 21. What was Agenda 21? Agenda 21 was one of the output of UNCD 1992. Then to follow up Millennium Development Goal, which was that introduced in 2000, that the UN Millennium Summit, right? And if we look into the key event that was happened in Rio 20, we also realize that there are number of loopholes, number of that limitation over there. Then it was revealed that the failures of global there are certain region for the failures of the implementation of Agenda 21 at global level, right? The conference was focused on two major themes: a green economy in the context of sustainable development and poverty eradication, and the institutional framework for sustainable development. So it recognized the importance of green economy for achieving sustainable development and the need for institutional framework to bring or to streamline it. Right. Then 7 major primary issues of concern were also identified. They are jobs, eradication of poverty needs jobs, energy, cities has to be developed in sustainable way, food, then water, ocean, and disasters, right? So we have different preparatory committees to prepare for Rio Plus 20. The first two preparatory committee that were held at UN headquarters in New York, United States, in May 20 and in March 2011. The third took place in Rio just before Rio 20. So, to keep things moving between the preparatory committees and the intersessional meetings, that intersessional meeting was also held, and the different committee compiled over 6,000 pages of comments, and they developed a draft called the Future We Want, and that's called in January 2012 as the Zero Draft Text, and it is one of the final outcome of Rio Plus 20, and spanning 19 pages and contain 128 relatively short paragraph. Right. Then this is the Future We Want is one of the output of Rio Plus 20 that laid the foundation for the development of Sustainable Development Goals, which would build upon Millennium Development Goals and set the tone for the post-2015 development agendas. If you look into that Future We Want, it is not neither a treaty nor any type of binding document. It's a statements of hopes, aspiration, admonitions, and promises, but it doesn't, as I mentioned, doesn't contain any commitments. But different references are made to many conventions and other agreements. But for most of the part, objective of reaffirming the existing commitment. And we learned that the progress so far made in that time of the Millennium Development Goals, which was implemented into 2000 to achieve by 2015, and in developing countries, there are some, lack of shortfall was there. A set of operational that failures was there that implicate many stakeholders in both poor and rich countries. The promises of official development assistance by rich countries, for example, have not been kept. Then we need to carry forward this MDGs, that progress of MDGs, and that is how in United Nations Sustainable Development Summit in 2015 in New York, the Sustainable Development Goals that was introduced as a global goals, 17 goals with 169 target. These are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 5 P's: for the people's welfare of the peoples, for the prosperity, protect the planet, and partnership, and for peace, right? Peace. So this has, you will see different in this, each goal has different targets, and to look into the targets, the progress of those targets, we have different indicators for each goal. You will see here we have goal, for example, goal number 1 to end poverty has 7 targets and 13 indicators. So today in this session, what we have discussed is in brief is about what are our different milestones in global efforts towards Sustainable Development Goals, beginning from UN Stockholm Conference. Then we had Constitution of World Commission on Environment Development, its report, then Rio in UNCED 1992, World Commission Environment, that United Nations Convention on Environment Development. Its follow-up Rio Plus 10, Rio Plus 20, MDGs. Then MDGs is carried forward as SDGs. And now we are in this era to achieve 17 Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So with this, thank you very much.
Hello learners. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic on one of the important challenges faced by most of the developing countries, and as of today it is a major challenge even in the developed countries, and that is unemployment. So let us start with the topic right away. First of all, let us look at what is unemployment. Unemployment is a situation in which a person is capable of working both physically and mentally, and the person is willing to work at the existing wage rate, but the person is unable to get any work. So, this is unemployment. Now, let us look at another important term which goes along with unemployment, and that is workforce. Now, what constitutes the workforce? Economically active people between 15 to 65 years who are employed during a specified reference period, along with economically active people between 15 to 65 years who are unemployed during a specified reference period, they combinedly constitute the workforce of any economy. Now let us look at what is the unemployment rate. Percentage of unemployed people or unemployed workers in the total workforce is known as unemployment rate. Now, during April to June 2022, the unemployment rate of India for the people aged 15 years and above in the urban areas was 7.6%. The unemployment rate among females in the urban areas was 9.5%, and the unemployment rate among males was 7.1%. Now, this statistic clearly shows the status of female unemployment vis-a-vis the status of male unemployment. We see that the percentage of female unemployment is much higher than that of male unemployment in the urban Indian scenario. The labor workforce participation in the current weekly status in urban areas for person aged 15 years and above was 47.5% between April to June quarter of 2022. And similarly, the worker population ratio in the current weekly status in the urban areas for persons aged 15 years and above stood at 43.9% in April to June 2022. Now, NSSO measures unemployment in India using three approaches. The first approach is the usual status unemployment. The second approach is the weekly status unemployment, and the third approach is the daily status unemployment. The usual status unemployment measures, estimates the number of persons who remained unemployed for a major part of the year. This measure gives the lowest estimate of unemployment of the all the three measures. Now, the weekly status unemployment, it measures the unemployment with respect to 1 week. A person is said to be unemployed if he or she is not able to work even for an hour during the entire survey period, that is 1 week. There is something else called the daily status unemployment. It is the activity status of a person for each day of the preceding 7 days. If a person has not found employment or work on a day or some days during the survey week, then he or she is regarded as unemployed. So these are some of the different approaches using which unemployment is measured in our country. Now let us look at what are the different types of unemployment. There are different types of unemployment. One of the major type of unemployment is open unemployment. It is a situation in which a person is unable to get a job and that would yield him regular income. This situation generally arises when the labor force expands at a faster rate than the rate of growth of the economy. There is something else called the structural unemployment. This occurs when there is a drastic change in the structure of an economy. It is also called as the natural rate of unemployment, as it is a natural outcome of economic development. For example, if, when there was computerization in India, then many of the people who used to do desk job, they lost their jobs. That was because of the structural change in the economy. There was a structural change that happened. So, with technological advancements, if the people do not catch up with the technology, then they are bound to face this kind of unemployment, that is structural unemployment. Then there is something else called the cyclical unemployment. It is also known as demand deficit unemployment. Now, cyclical unemployment is a byproduct of economic recession. The same way as the business has its ups and downs, the troughs and the downs. So, in the same way, when the economy is at the boom, there is less unemployment. When the economy goes down, there is more unemployment. So, it goes in a cycle as the business cycle. Hence, it is known as cyclical unemployment. Then there is something called frictional unemployment. This refers to the transitional period of looking for a new job. This type of unemployment is generally happens when a person leaves a job and is looking for another job. Then this transition period is known as frictional unemployment. This is generally a short-term unemployment because the person is bound to find a new job. A qualified person is bound to find another job in a very short span of time. Then there is something else called the seasonal unemployment. Seasonal unemployment occurs during certain seasons of the year. For example, some of the occupations like agriculture or holiday resorts or, for example, the ice creams or ice industries, they face seasonal unemployment because these are the sectors which have employment only during few seasons or few months of the year. Hence, it is known as seasonal unemployment. Then there is something called the disguised unemployment. It is a situation in which more people are doing a particular work, more number of people are employed to do a particular work than actually required to do that work. Even if some of the people are withdrawn from that work, if some people are withdrawn from that activity, then the production does not suffer because they are more people are employed in the same to do the same task. Or in other words, it refers to a situation of unemployment where the surplus manpower is employed to do a particular task. Then we look at something else called underemployment. Underemployment is a situation in which the employed contributes less than their capacity, their actual capacity, which means that they are more qualified than what the job requires. So this kind of unemployment is called underemployment. For example, a graduate or an engineering graduate goes works as a pizza delivery person. Then this person is actually underemployed. Then we look at something called hidden unemployment. Hidden unemployment and underemployment are almost one and the same. Hidden unemployed are those who have given up looking for work and are working at less than they would like, or who work at jobs in which their skills are not fully utilized and their number is not reflected in official unemployment statistics or records. Now let us, having looked at the different types of unemployment, let us look at what are the important causes of unemployment. One of the important cause of unemployment is low and fluctuating levels of economic growth. Economic growth is bound to generate more employment opportunities. But when the economic growth is low, or when the economic growth fluctuates, then it causes unemployment, it causes a situation of unemployment in the economy. Then another important cause of unemployment is excessive dependence on agriculture and slow growth of non-farm activities. Because you all know, agriculture is a seasonal occupation, in which the person cannot be employed throughout the season. So this kind of unemployment, it is also known as seasonal unemployment, or it is also known as disguised unemployment, because more number of people are employed in agriculture than are actually required. For example, in a field, the entire family of the person who owns the farm is employed, whether their employment is required, whether their activity is they are required to perform those activities or not. The entire family is involved. So this kind of unemployment is also known as disguised unemployment, in which more number of people are employed in to do a particular activity. Then another important source of unemployment is cause of unemployment is rapid growth in population, which leads to increase in the labor force. Lack of clear and well-developed human resource policies which are directed towards training the human resource in the areas which require specific skills. Then lack of such policies also leads to unemployment. Another important cause of unemployment is slow growth of industrial sector. Lack of investment in infrastructure are also important causes of unemployment. Then technological change also leads to unemployment. If there is development of labor-saving technology, then some of the industries may adopt those technologies, and they may ask the people to leave and adopt those technologies which replace people. This kind of situation also leads to unemployment. Then, as we discussed, the structural changes in the economy is also one of the important causes of unemployment. For example, decline in the coal mines due to lack of competitiveness meant that the coal miners will be rendered unemployed. Similarly, as we discussed, if there is computerization of an office, and the people are not up to date with the latest techniques, then there are chances that they may lose their job. So this kind of unemployment is known as structural unemployment. So any structural changes in the economy, or any structural change at the workplace where the workers are not able to keep up with the change, also leads to unemployment. Another important cause of unemployment is the occupational immobilities. This refers to difficulties in learning new skills and applying them to new industries. When the people cannot keep up with the changing skill needs, when they are not updated with the latest technological requirements, then this also leads to unemployment. Another important factor is geographical immobilities. This refers to difficulty of a person due to various reasons to move into different geographical locations. For example, there may be job in a particular region which is away from the person's area of residence, and the person is reluctant to leave his area of residence and go to that particular place to do the job. Then it also leads to a situation of unemployment. The person may have to wait for job opportunities of his or her caliber to come at his place of be there at his place of residence for him to opt for the job. So this kind of unemployment, this also leads to unemployment. So having discussed the different causes of unemployment, let us now look at some of the important effects of unemployment. One of the important effect of unemployment is poverty. Unemployment and poor workforce participation will enhance both absolute as well as relative poverty in the economy. When people are unemployed, when people are not able to earn, then this leads to a situation, this leads to poverty in their families, this leads to poverty in the nation. So, poverty is one of the very important effects of unemployment. Another important effect of unemployment is income inequality. Unemployment severely affects income inequality. Especially, lack of work will reduce the income of the labor force, and the gap between the rich and the poor, the income divide between the rich and the poor keeps on increasing. So, unemployment is a leading cause of income inequality in any economy. Now, another important effect of unemployment is social and human development. The household with lower income would be unable to spend on different elements which which are important for leading a quality life. For example, healthcare. A person who is not employed will not be able to invest in healthcare of his own self or his or her family. Similarly, education. A person who does not have employment will not be able to provide for the education of his or her children. There are many other aspects like entertainment, like nutritious food, like shelter, like clothing. All these are dependent on the employment of a person. So, unemployment also leads to it also hinders the social and human development of any country or of any economy. Another important effect of unemployment is the quality of life. Unemployed people are not able to invest on the basic amenities such as food, clothing, shelter, etc. And the quality of life also depends on the type of unemployment. Then another important feature is social unrest and crime. You will see that most of the social unrest and most of the criminal activities take place or are done by people, by the youth who are unemployed. When the youth are not gainfully employed, they resort to crime, they resort to unfair means to get hold of wealth, to get hold of money. So, social unrest and crime rates increase in the areas where there is unemployment. Another important effect of unemployment is malnutrition. Unemployment, especially chronic unemployment, affects the household income and reduces the ability of the household to spend on food and nutrition. So, it is always seen that malnutrition is higher among the households which are victim of chronic unemployment. When there is unemployment in the family, when there is lack of employment in the family, when there is lack of income source in the family, then the food basket of the family is restricted to the staple diet. They are not able to diversify their food basket to including various nutritious diets, such as including pulses in their diet, such as including fruits in their diet, such as including milk in their diet. So, malnutrition also is one of the effects of unemployment. Another important effect of unemployment is enhancement, or another important effect of unemployment is the loss in job, the loss of peace in the family. So these are the various effects of unemployment. Now let us look at how can unemployment be reduced? How can this situation of unemployment be reduced in any economy? The first and foremost is enhancement of employment in the private sector. We all know that the government sector has its own limitations to employ, in employing the number of people it has to employ. So there is a need for more and more private sectors to come up so that there is enhancement in employment opportunities. Another important point which can help in reduction of unemployment is skill education. Imparting quality skill and vocational education among the youth, especially the need-based skills, the skills that are needed at this hour. Such need-based skill education can lead to reduction in unemployment, because with the increase in the number of industries, with the increase in the number of private sector activities, with the increase in the service demand for qualified people in the service sector, what we lack is not human resource, but what we lack is skilled human resource. So, imparting quality skill and vocational education can help in combating this situation of unemployment. Another important aspect is foreign direct investment. In the globalized era, foreign direct investment is also considered as one of the important measures to promote investment in private sector, which in turn leads to increase in employment. Another important aspect of which can help in reducing unemployment situation is modernization of agriculture and agro-based industries. We all know that agriculture in India is still way behind the what is practiced in the Western countries. The Indian farmer is still to get used to the modern implements, the modern techniques of agriculture, and also agro-based industries for the farmers to be gainfully employed during off seasons, because we all know that agriculture is has this characteristics of seasonal unemployment. The farmers, the people whose livelihood is based on agriculture, are seasonally unemployed. So in order to make them gainfully employed, it is important to have non-farm activity. It is important that they engage themselves into non-farm activities. For example, agro-processing industries. If some agro-processing industries come up along with the agriculture, then the farmers can be gainfully employed throughout the year. Another important aspect is public-private partnership. The government needs to provide infrastructure support and other support to the private sector. The Smart City initiative, through public-private partnership, will create employment opportunities, especially in the urban areas. Another important aspect is the role of NGOs in employment generation. NGOs play a very important role in employment generation, just like the private sector. The NGOs, in NGOs, employment generation, especially in service sector, like in health and education, can be provided through NGOs. So NGOs also have a very important role in employment generation. So dear learners, today we discussed about what is unemployment. Unemployment is when a person is willing to work at the current, is skilled, is willing to work at the current wage rate, but is unable to find employment, gainful employment, then this situation is known as unemployment. We also looked at what are the different types of unemployment. We looked at the open unemployment, seasonal unemployment, cyclical unemployment, disguised unemployment. We looked at hidden unemployment, underemployment. So these are the different types of unemployment. We also looked at what are the different causes of unemployment. And we also looked at what are the various effects of unemployment and how unemployment can be reduced. So that's all for today. Thank you.
Hello viewers, today's topic is capitalism and the idea of liberal democracy. We know ancient times it is important to relation between the government and the society. Where what kind of the society exists in there, what is the nature of the state, the governments, it's matter for the people of particular state or nations. If you look at the First World War, Second World War, how many countries were the democratic country, what was the nature of the state. But definitely, after the Second World War, there were the new waves of democracy. In the New World Order, there was also the beginning of the Cold War, establishment of international organizations like the United Nations, Britain, US, IMF, World Bank, many more things happened that time after the Second World War. So capitalism is important factors if you look at European democracy, American democracy, as well as the new emerging democracy after the Second World War. India was also one of the post-colonial country. It's get independence in 1947. So we have to discuss about what is the relations, what are the factors, what are the challenges, relations, what kind of the relations between the capitalism and the liberal democracy in the New World Order. Where we have go through all the details, different challenges, different aspects, dynamics in the era of globalizations, capitalism and idea of liberal democracy. We know capitalism and democracy follow different logics. Unequally distributed property rights. If we go through the definitions, structure, capitalist structure of the society, especially Western society. One hand, equal civic and political rights. Sometimes it is the contested, sometimes coexist in the particular society. We know capitalism, it is the profit-oriented trade within the capitalist states searching for common goods within the democracy. There is a debate, compromise majority decision making within the democratic politics, as well as versus hierarchical decision making by managers and capital owners, where we can say capitalism is not democratic and democracy not capitalist, because sometimes it is the debate in the international relations, international politics and political science. Does capitalism link with democracy? What kind of nature of the democracy it matters? Liberal democracy in the New World Order. So sometimes we can say capitalism and democracy have proven themselves the most successful system of economic and political order in past 2 centuries. It is the wonderful things, but there is some barriers, some challenges still exist. The capitalism relation with the democracy. But you look at the Western, especially US, Japan, Germany, France, after the Second World War, both coexist there. If you look at the definition or different aspects of the capitalism, where capitalism relations between the market and state. Market liberal capitalisms, we can say prevailing market principles in the relationship between the different companies, the types of dominance in Europe and North America throughout much of the 19th century. We can say this capitalist model survived there with the concept of the welfare state. It's after the post-Second World War. So organized and embedded capitalism is there within the context of technological and organizational innovations. Capitalism develop internal needs for coordination and regulations. But look at neoliberal capitalisms since late 1970s. Neoliberal critics has gained tradition sometimes. Sharp contrast of the Keynesian welfare state capitalism is states market mechanisms. Whatever today we see, it is the market mechanisms in the era of globalizations that matter for democracy. If you look at some of the definitions of different political science scholars, international scholars like the Max Weber say capitalism was the product of relationalizations and rationality, which was significant characteristic of modernity because society needs growth, economic growth, social growth, development. Karl Marx say historical and dialectical analysis of evolution. Capitalist systems considered to be the product of contradictions found within the earlier feudalistic order. Look at this picture. What kind of the capitalisms across the world in today's world order, where it is the American hegemony or it is the Europeans? Let's see what kind of the products, produces, ideas, world become a global village. World power law, different cultures, different society. Capitalism is there. For examples, look at this picture. That very popular some of the products the market selling across the world. McD, Coca-Cola and Pizza Hut. Doesn't matter you are in African countries, continent or Asian or Atlantic. Doesn't matter. But these are very popular products of the capitalism where we can say economic system which productions, distribution and exchange of wealth privately owned by within the goal of making profit in market economy. Competition is there, no doubt. If you look at industrializations that time and today, the, the phases of industrializations, Adam Smith has written books, The Wealth of Nations, to today. If you look at government should not interfere with the economy, but today there is a direct interference of capitalist class in market, in governments and vice versa. Capitalists also interfere the regulations policy of the democratic state in the new world order. Lot of examples, richers become the richers in all capitalist society, the private ownership. There is a contested between the political equality, liberty. I will discuss it later. So look at this picture. This matters. What is the scenario today about the capitalist link between the capitalist state and the liberal democracy? Negatives, only a few growth risks, no labor law. Peoples grew very dissatisfied with the working conditions, unequal distribution of the wealth. If you look at the positive side, more competitions, better goods at better price, entrepreneurial opportunities, growth of middle class is there. So capitalism, which system where money is invested in business ventures with the goal of making profit. Capitalists believe that government should not step into the business world for any reasons, including make laws that would create better wages or working conditions. But it is known that in democracy it is the matters of the right. So if you look at the capitalism and the market economy today, where it reflects all the new democracy or after the post Second World War, all the democratic states in the new world order, capitalist economy where effort the economic systems where the factors production such as capital goods, labor, natural resources, entrepreneurship are controlled and regulated by the private business. But in democracy, it's matter for the government, liberty, equality. Capitalism requires free market economy in order to succeed it. So, laissez-faire economics that matter today in terms of, you say, market economy. Capitalist market model today exists since 1800. The middle class owners of railroads, factories, mines began supporting They believe that freedoms from the government control would mean a growing economy and material progress for all the peoples. The only fear is laissez-faire. So there is a yes, both are important for survival of human society. So there is a lot of questions. What is the challenges for capitalism and democracy? How to interlinked? Yes or no? But look at the China. It is not a democratic country, but there is a capitalism is there. FDI is there. Rising China is today. It's matter for the world community. But if you go through the different indicators, the factors, highly contested. In democracy, liberal, social, pluralistic, elitist, decisionist, communitarians, cosmopolitans, republicans, deliberative, participatory, feminist, critical, postmodern, multicultural concept of democracy all compete each other. So there is a debate in democracy with the capitalist model of market economy. So sometimes say there is embedded democracy. There is a partial regimes as a point of reference we can consider. The new democracy emerging in the post 90s after the end of the Cold War. The regime of democratic elections, regime of political participations, partial regime of civil rights, institutional protection and separation of powers, horizontal accountability, and guarantees that effective use of the power by democratically elected representatives in assured de jure and de facto. India will be the one of the best examples if you look at the Indian society, democracy. Pakistan is there, American is there, but there is a lot of differences. Indicators is different from US to the here. So embedded democracy principle is there in, but we are not like democracy like the Americans. So if you look at the historical moorings of capitalism and liberal democracy, its development of capitalism as a system began in 16th century. Industrial form of capitalism was there, England in 18th century. From Australia, America, New Zealand, South Africa, today 19th century European colonial rules. It was the expansion with the European colonial rules, capitalism came to dominate the entire world. Capitalist argues that democracy requires capitalism because of freedom to accumulate. Private property is highest value for the economic freedom. Economic freedom exists when government and monopolies are checked. So it is the debate in society, especially the capitalist society. But America is the unique model of capitalist and democracy there, capitalism and democracy there. If you link with some of the structures, government, state, for example, monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, free market, market rules, democratic capitalisms, hybrid, democratic socialism, command economy, pure form. Command economy, it was the one of the example of the Soviet Union before the collapse in 1991. Planned economy was there. It was the state control economy. Right now China, but it is the capitalist. Capitalism is there. So various theory of democracy, they have contested, they have the challenges, there is a debate about the traditional liberal theory of democracy, Marxist theory, elitist theory, socialist theory, but there is an interrelations between capitalism and democracy. Gabriel Almond identify four broad type of interrelationship. Capitalism support democracy. Capitalism subvert democracy. It's a debate. Democracy subverts capitalism and democracy foster capitalisms. So there is a interlinked. Sometimes it's a cooperation and competitions. Sometimes there is a conflict between capitalism and democracy. So in democracy, rights is important. Whatever the rights, social, political, economic rights, it's matter for all citizen of the particular country. Today's global society is there. But democracy in other hands, idea of equality, it's matter for democracy. But capitalists say we approaching the private property, the private hand. In the market economy, peoples compete, trying to gain advantage over each other. Survival of fittest. Herbert Spencer say, in the capitalist society, doesn't matter, they do not care about the rights, but democracy is matter. So there is some contradictions, socio-economic inequality and political equality. So political spectrum, left to right, Marxisms, democratic socialisms, social democracy, or conservatisms, neoliberalisms, anarchisms, fascisms, radicals, feminists, reformists. If you look at the rightist to the leftist, whatever the political spectrum is the international orders, all have debate, all have challenges, right versus capitalist mode of productions. So radicals, feminists, reformists, environmentalisms, anti-globalism, populism, theocracy, a lot of idea and debate is the link between and contradictions between them both. Liberal democracy sometimes say it is the product and characteristic feature of modernity. It came into existence as a result of civil war against royal absolutisms and paved away the transfer of power from crown to the parliament. American French revolutions, growth of industrial capitalism since 18th century, if you go through the historical roots of the liberal democracy in the world society. French Declaration of the Rights of Man in 1789, American Declaration of Independence in 1776. Political ideas, John Locke, who invoked the idea of inalienable rights of man. So, liberal democracy is tailored to the needs of capitalism. It is the important point, you can check it. Liberal democracy is tailored to be needs to of democracy. But at the same time, there is a conflict between the logic of democracy and logic of capitalism. In the market economy, peoples are formally equal free agents, each pursuing their own interest. State versus public goods. A state as a source of danger to private interest. Liberal democracy seeks to make the state strong, capable by making legitimate through democratic methods, but it seeks to limit the state authority over society, separation of power, rule of law, and constitutionalism. One of the international scholar, Farid Zakaria, he defined the democracy, especially in the context of the West, democracy versus liberal democracy. The political system with the free and fair elections, but also rule of law, separation of power, protection of basic liberties of speech, assembly, religion, and property. So that is the contested with the capitalist mode of state. Zakaria also separates and defines democracy, rule of people, procedure for selecting government, which must be hold competitive, multi-party elections. Constitutional liberalism granted civil liberties, that's matter. Basic law, limiting power. If you go through the characteristic of liberal democracy, what is the features, what is the indicators for the liberal democracy? Liberty, equality, fraternity, sovereignty with the people, open competition for political parties, freedom for political parties, periodic elections, faith in constitutional means, rule of majority, provisions of right, rule of law, secularism, decentralization of power. These are the indicators defined the idea of liberal democracy in the world politics, international relations, character of the state. Rejection of violence. But there is some criticism, liberal theory of democracy, more importance to quantity than quality. It's based on principle of unnatural equality. We can say dominance of bureaucracy is there. It is expensive government, unstable government, bad effect of political parties. So many theorists also criticize liberal democracy. So also for including India. India assumed to be a liberal democracy in today's world order. But nature has changed. If comparison to other liberal democracy, we are a socialist society, but there is a embedded capitalist private business players in this country. So India considered to be the market for the capitalist class. So that's why there is a debate in international relations, political science. What kind of the characters of the liberal democracy today? One side you are talking about liberty, equality, justice, rights, especially the human rights. But second side, capitalism say no, only growth of the economy, the profits matter for the society. Profits matter for the companies, doesn't matter. I do not care about the rights of the labor and others. Equality matters. Democracy established the political equality. But capitalism, there is a huge gap of social and economic inequality in the society. Poorer becomes the poorer, richer become the richer in capitalist society. Capitalist class, especially business, they are trying to captures resources, captures the market, control the markets, control the society through the market. Therefore, for example, India, for the capitalists, they consider it is the market for them. It is not for socio-political equality, doesn't matter for the rights. In America, as well as if you look at the welfare state, what is the idea of the welfare state in the liberal democracy? For example, Western European countries, Japan is there, Western European, especially France, Germany, Italy, many countries is there. They are all are democratic countries of the post 95, post Second World War. Japan is one of them. Japan in Asia. But look at the growth of economy of Japan in last 45 years. Post 90s, the rise of China as well as India. So we changes with the context of liberalizations, with context of the globalizations, whatever the waves of globalizations and the waves of democratic process. India still, democracy is considered to be not a perfect, but we have a periodical elections, leadership change, multi-party systems, multicultures, secularisms. That's matter for liberal democracy. In American society, it also matters. But whatever the debate in political science and international relations, capitalism is not a democratic, democracy not capitalist. It is a very important point. Capitalism and democracy can easily conflict in two situations. If the distribution and use of property rights lead to an accumulation of wealth large enough to hinder political through capitalist pressure, if democratic decisions are taken to massively limit through the use of property rights. So that is the contested and debate, the capitalist versus liberal democracy, capitalist society versus liberal democracy, rights. So in theory, we can say capitalism and democracy share common enemies, uncontrollable agglomerations of a state, economic power, disorder, unpredictability, and corruptions, no doubt. But capitalists only fix the directions for the profit. Capitalism is compatible with the democracy. Sometimes it is the questions, it is the debate in political science and international relations. It depends on type of capitalisms and the type of democracy. What kind of the democracy exists in your state? A lot of examples. For example, India, if compared to the democracy in India, Pakistan, Nepal, recently Sri Lanka. what happened there? Political crisis, economic crisis, the economic debt is there. So there is a question on liberal democracy. If you look at American society, yes, they are the successful manage capitalism versus liberal democratic order or liberal democratic state. So finally you say, yes, there is a contested cooperation, conflict between capitalism and liberal democratic states in the world society. Thank you.
मानव का धरती पर आना शायद एक चमत्कार से कम नहीं है। क्या कभी हमने सोचा है कि हम इस धरती पर किस लिए पैदा हुए हैं? क्या हमने कभी इस बात पे गौर किया है कि मनुष्य का ये जो जीवन है, ये किस लिए उसे दिया गया है? क्यों मनुष्य बना है? और जब उसका जन्म होता है और उसके बाद उसकी मृत्यु होती है, इसके बीच का जो समय है, क्या वही जीवन है? हजारों तरह के सवाल जो है व्यक्ति के मन में रहते हैं अपने आप को लेकर। आज जो मैं आपके सामने एक कहानी जो लेकर आई हूँ, वह कहानी जो है वह हमारे भारतीय समाज की यथार्थ की कहानी है। एक ऐसी कहानी है जो आपको रूबरू करवाएगी आपको स्वयं से, और जो हमारा जो समाज है उसके एक ऐसे तंत्र से आपको मैं रूबरू करवाऊंगी इस कहानी के माध्यम से कि वास्तव में जो है यह जो तंत्र है, कौन से तंत्र की आज हम बात करने वाले हैं। हम बात करने वाले हैं सरकारी तंत्र की, कि व्यक्ति जो है जब सरकारी तंत्र में रहता है तो वह किस प्रकार से कार्य करता है, और उसकी जो जिसे कहेंगे कार्य क्षमता वह किस प्रकार से घट जाती है, कैसे वह अपने जीवन के में जो कार्य जो कर रहा है वह कैसे घटित हो रहे हैं, कैसे वह उनसे प्रभावित हो रहा है, और इसके साथ साथ जो है किस प्रकार उसने एक ऐसी संरचना, ऐसा ताना बाना उसने अपने चारों तरफ बना लिया है कि उसे खुद ही नहीं पता है। अगर हम स्वार्थ की बात करते हैं, स्वार्थ क्या होता है, कि क्या सारी दुनिया स्वार्थी है, और स्वार्थ में व्यक्ति किस प्रकार से अंधा हो जाता है, और जो है वास्तव में जो है व्यक्ति चाहता क्या है अपने इस जीवन से। स्वार्थ, मान लीजिए वो स्वार्थ कर भी लेता है तो उस स्वार्थ सिद्धि से वह क्या प्राप्त करता है, और अंत में जो है एक मनुष्य जो है वो किस रूप में जो है उसका जो आखिरी जो रूप होता है वह क्या होता है, एक मिट्टी जिसमें उसे एक दिन मिल जाना है। इसी प्रकार के बहुत से सवालों को हास्य के माध्यम से हमारे समक्ष जो रखा है हरिशंकर परसाई ने। हरिशंकर परसाई की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो उनके व्यंग्य को जो है आज भी साहित्य जगत में सबसे प्रमुख व्यंग्यकारों के रूप में देखा जाता है, और साथ साथ में इसमें हंसी के पुट भी होते हैं। हंसते खिलखिलाते वो अपनी बात कह देते हैं। समाज में दी जाने वाली जो मिसालें हैं उन मिसालों को हम इस कहानी में देखेंगे, और देखेंगे कि किस तरीके से जो है मनुष्य जो है अपने इस जीवन को सुखमय बना सकता है, और अगर वह बनाना भी चाहता है तो कौन कौन सी चीज़ें हैं जो उसके जीवन को प्रभावित करती हैं। तो चलिए मैं आपको ले चलती हूँ एक ऐसे संसार में, एक ऐसी दुनिया में जहाँ आपको समझेंगे, जहाँ आप देखेंगे कि किस तरीके से एक लेखक ने एक माहौल तैयार किया है। एक ग्रामीण परिवेश का एक माहौल है, कब का एक दृश्य जो है कहानी के प्रारंभ में खींचा है लेखक ने, कि क्या है कि एक व्यक्ति है और उसकी जो है क्या है, उसकी मृत्यु हो जाती है, और जैसे कहा जाता है कि मृत्यु के बाद जो है इंसान कहाँ जाता है, किसी को पता है? या फिर हमने जो पौराणिक जो कथाएं हैं उन्हीं को जो है उन्हीं में पढ़ा है कि व्यक्ति जो है मरने के बाद कहाँ जाता है, ये जीवन क्या है। ऐसे बहुत से सवालों से जो है हम जूझते रहते हैं। तो इस कहानी में हम देखेंगे कि सबसे पहले दिखाया गया है जो है यमराज, और उसके बाद जो है धर्मगुप्त और चंद्रगुप्त, तीन इसमें जो है मूल रूप से पात्र हमारे सामने आएंगे। और उसमें एक पात्र है जो है जिसको जो है नारद मुनि का नाम किसने नहीं सुना है। जिसने भी जो है थोड़ा बहुत भी जो सजग सतर्क और जागरूक होगा जीवन मृत्यु को लेके, पौराणिक कथाओं को लेके, या पंचतंत्र किसी भी प्रकार की कहानियों को लेके, या साहित्य जगत में एक जो भी सामान्य जो मनुष्य होगा वो नारद को जरूर जानता होगा। आज जो है इस कहानी का जो है हरिशंकर परसाई ने मूल जो आधार रखा है वह पौराणिक कथा रखा है। दिखाया है कहानी में कि किस प्रकार से धर्मराज जो है चश्मा लगाए बैठे हैं, चश्मा लगा के देख रहे हैं इधर उधर क्या होने वाला है, और पेज पे पेज पलटे जा रहे हैं और उन्हें नहीं मिल रहा है। तो वह बुलाते हैं धर्मराज को, बोलते हैं अरे यमराज को बुलाओ, जो है इधर आओ तुम। क्या बोले, जी महाराज। कैसे आता है धर्मराज, प्रस्तुत जब होता है तो वह कैसे प्रस्तुत हो रहा है, एकदम बदहास थका हुआ इंसान जो खूब मेहनत करता है, और खूब मेहनत के बाद भी जो है उसके शरीर पर जो है एकदम से थकान छा जाती है, पसीना उसके माथे पर चमक रहा है और भागा हुआ सा आ रहा है, लेकिन क्या है, निराश लौटा है। इतनी मेहनत, इतनी जद्दोजहद और इतने जीवन का अनुभव लगाने के बाद आज एक इंसान खाली हाथ लौटा है। कहाँ से? धरती लोक से। क्या हो गया? भोला राम, जिसे 7 दिन पहले या 5 दिन पहले जिसकी मृत्यु हो गई है, और उसका जो है अभी तक जो है वो खाते में नहीं मिल रहा है, उसकी आत्मा अभी तक नहीं पहुंची है। तो ये तो बड़ा ही जो है एक क्या कहेंगे, अप्रत्याशित सा कार्य हो गया है। वो यमराज जो लेने जाता है और आज तक जीवन में कभी खाली हाथ नहीं लौटा, और इतना मजबूत और इतना तत्पर है अपने कार्य करने में कि उसे कोई चकमा दे ही नहीं सका। उसे भोला राम ने उसे कैसे चकमा दे दिया? कैसे आज जो है 5 दिन हो गए हैं उसको उसके जो शरीर से प्राणों को निकले हुए, और आज तक जो है उसकी आत्मा यहाँ अभी तक पहुंची नहीं है, दर्ज नहीं है रजिस्टर में। बड़ा गुस्सा सा लग रहा है धर्मराज के चेहरे पर। तो कहते हैं कि ये क्या है, क्या है यमदूत, तुमने अभी तक जो है अपना कार्य तत्परता से क्यों नहीं किया? ऐसे तो पूरे ब्रह्मांड में जो है वह जो है तबाही मच जाएगी। अगर रोज ऐसे कार्य होने लगे तो ये क्या जो है किस प्रकार से जो है हमारी जो पूरी संरचना वो कैसे चलेगी? तो कहते हैं महाराज, हाथ जोड़ के खड़ा हुआ है यमराज, महाराज मुझे नहीं पता, मैं वहीं पर था, और उसे मैं जैसे ही मैं उसे लेकर आ रहा था तो एकदम से जो है पता नहीं वह कैसे गायब हो गया। ये जो है मैं खुद नहीं समझ पाया। तो कहते हैं आगे यमराज बोलता है, नहीं, उसे तो ये तो बहुत ही एक जो है प्रत्याशित घटना है, और ये बर्दाश्त के लायक नहीं है, तो आप इसको ऐसा नहीं कर सकते हो, उसको ढूंढना ही पड़ेगा, वरना हमारी जो पूरी संरचना है उसके ऊपर क्या है प्रश्न चिन्ह लग जाएगा। तो बात जो है आगे बढ़ती है, और पूरे जो है यमलोक में जो है एक अजीब सी मनुष्य सी छा जाती है, और एक भय का, एक डर का माहौल जो है वो बन जाता है कि ये क्या हो गया, कैसे रह गया, कहाँ रह गया, और उसकी तहकीकात की जाए, तहों में जाया जाए। तो नारद मुनि प्रकट होते हैं। जैसे ही कहा जाता है कि जैसे कुछ विपत्ति आती है, जब कोई समस्या आती है तो क्या होता है कि जो उसमें नारद मुनि कहते हैं प्रकट होते हैं, और वो बड़ी ही खुशनुमा मुद्रा में जो है वो प्रकट होते हैं। नारायण नारायण, अगर आपने सुना होगा या देखा होगा तो उसमें क्या है, नारद मुनि जो प्रकट होते हैं तो वो इस धुनी से बोलते हैं। तो बोलिए महाराज, क्या हो गया आज इस लोक में, ये कैसी उदासी छाई हुई है, किस प्रकार का माहौल बना हुआ है, आखिर हो क्या गया है? तो कहते हैं, आइए नारद मुनि, मामला बड़ा गंभीर है, बड़ा संगीन जुर्म हो गया है। एक मनुष्य, एक सामान्य सा अदना सा मनुष्य, 60 साल की उम्र का एक वृद्ध, उसे लाने में आज यमराज असफल हो गए। तो कहते हैं कि कह रहे हैं कि मुझे पता ही नहीं है। तो यमराज हाथ जोड़ता है, नहीं नहीं महाराज, क्या आप देखिए, आज तक मैंने पूरी जिंदगी लगा दी, क्या आज तक मैं कभी जो है इस मामले में जो है कभी भी ऐसा कुछ हुआ हो तो मुझे बताइए। मैंने अपना कार्य पूरी तत्परता के साथ किया है, और जो है मुझे खुद नहीं समझ आ रहा आखिर में भोला राम का जीव गया कहाँ। और उसके बाद जो है कहानी में दूसरा पड़ाव आता है। नारद मुनि कहते हैं, आप रुकिए, मैं जानने की कोशिश करता हूँ आखिर माजरा क्या है, क्या चल रहा है। और नारद मुनि पहुँचते हैं कहाँ पर, एक धरती पे आके एक क्या है एक कमरे के जो टूटे फूटे से मकान में पहुँचते हैं। सामान्यतः एक व्यक्ति को जो है कहा जाता है कि किससे प्रेम होता है, अपने परिवार और अपने बच्चों से ही। तो नारद मुनि जाते हैं और जो है अलख जगाते हैं, हाँ माई बाहर आइए। तो जो है उनकी रोती बिसुरती सी भोला राम की पत्नी बाहर आती है। हाँ कहिए महाराज, क्या बात है, हम लुट गए, हम बर्बाद हो गए, हम तबाह हो गए। और जो रुंदन जो है किया जाता है किसी व्यक्ति के जाने के बाद, और एक पत्नी को जो पीड़ा होती है उसकी जो अभिव्यक्ति है वो उसके चेहरे पे साफ झलक रही थी। और कहते हैं, जी महाराज बोलिए, कहे आप ये पूछती हैं कि अरे भोला राम को आखिर हुआ क्या था? कुछ नहीं हुआ महाराज, क्या होता उसे, आखिर हो क्या है, कोई बीमारी हो तो हम नाम बताएं। तो पूछते हैं कि कुछ तो हुआ होगा, कोई तो बात रही होगी, नहीं तो जो है कैसे उसे मृत्यु ने उसे निगला, कुछ तो बताइए। तो कहती है कि सच सच पूछिए तो उसे रिटायर हुए 5 साल से ज़्यादा हो गए थे। और 60 साल की उम्र जो है 55 साल के आसपास जो है वो रिटायर हुए, 60 साल की उम्र अभी पार कर गए थे। लेकिन जब से रिटायर हुए हैं तब से पेंशन के लिए अर्जी लगा रहे हैं, लगा के अगर मान लीजिए कि 50-60 रुपए घर में आ जाते तो गृहस्थी चलती। जितने पैसे थे कमाई के, इन 5-6 सालों में सब कुछ जो है वो लग गए, गहने बिके पहले, उसके बाद जो है वो क्या है बर्तन तक बिकने की नौबत आ गई। गरीबी आखिर जो गरीबी व्यक्ति झेलता है और जो गरीबी व्यक्ति बखान करता है उसमें बड़ा गहरा अंतर है। गरीबी पे चर्चा करना बहुत आसान है, लेकिन गरीबी को झेलना बहुत मुश्किल है। गरीबी से बड़ा अभिशाप कहा जाता है कि कोई नहीं होता है, भूखा रहना और जो है भूखा मरना, दोनों में बहुत अंतर है। फाके पड़ जाना और मर्जी से जो है अन्न ग्रहण न करने में बड़ी गहरी वेदना छिपी हुई है। हरिशंकर परसाई कह रहे हैं आगे, इस मंजर को उन्होंने इस कहानी के माध्यम से प्रस्तुत किया है जिसकी तरफ व्यक्ति का ध्यान ही नहीं जाता है। सरकारी कर्मचारी रहा है, पेंशन पूरी ज़िंदगी नौकरी की है, तो क्या उसे जो है उसे पेंशन का जो है उसका जो अधिकार है, मूल अधिकार, क्या वह नहीं मिलना चाहिए? और सरकारी तंत्र में किस प्रकार से कार्य किए जाते हैं, वहाँ पे जो है आपके जो है किस तरीके से जो है लोगों के साथ व्यवहार किया जाता है, फाइल पे वजन रखिए। अभी ये कहानी का तीसरा दौर यहाँ पे शुरू होगा। वजन, किस चीज़ का वजन? आज से अगर हम 50-60 साल पहले या 20-30 या 30 साल पहले की भी अगर हम बात करें तो हमारे समाज में क्या है, जो परिवार या जो व्यक्ति रिश्वत लेता था उसके चरित्र को जो है वो बुरा माना जाता था। उसके चरित्र को इस प्रकार से प्रस्तुत किया जाता था कि उन घरों में लोग अपनी बेटियों के रिश्ते तक नहीं करते थे और वह एक कलंक की तरह से देखा जाता था। समय ने करवट बदली और जो है भौतिकवादी युग ने जो है क्या है अपनी धमक फैलाई और भौतिकता के इस युग ने क्या किया, कैसे लोगों के मूल्यों को बदला है, किस तरीके से जो है किसी की ईमानदारी का, सच्चाई का, नेकी का, अपनेपन का और प्रेम का जो वास्तविक जो चीज़ें हैं उनका उपहास उड़ाया गया है। भावनात्मक होना एक जो है कमजोरी के रूप में देखा जाता है। भावनात्मक जो भावना क्या करती है, भावना व्यक्ति को कमज़ोर करती है। और दूसरी चीज़ जो है तर्क जब व्यक्ति करता है तो तर्क में या जब व्यक्ति बहस करता है, अपनी चीज़ों को रखता है, अपने मुद्दों को रखता है, तो वह क्या करता है, वह उसका एक गरिमामयी व्यक्तित्व निकल के सामने आता है। इसी तरह के एक भाव को हरिशंकर परसाई ने रखा कि जो चीज़ वास्तव में बुरी है, कलंकित है और जो त्याज्य है, जिसे वो ग्रहण करने के योग्य नहीं है, आज वह लोगों के सिर का मुकुट बन गई है। जी हाँ, यहाँ पे हरिशंकर परसाई ने बात की है रिश्वतखोरी की। रिश्वतखोर जो होते हैं, अगर आज जो मैंने अभी चर्चा की कि 30-40 साल पहले जब कोई रिश्वत लेता था तो उन घरों में लोग अपनी बेटियों के रिश्ते तक नहीं करते थे। और आज बहुत शान शौकत से बताया जाता है कि हमारा जो जिस भी ओहदे पर होता है व्यक्ति, इतना जो है कोई, चाहे वो इनकम टैक्स हो, चाहे पुलिस का महक, किसी भी बहुत से ऐसे महकमे हैं जिनको किस रूप में देखा जाता है कि वहाँ पर जो है पोस्टिंग, यानी कि वहाँ पर अपनी जो है अर्जियां लगाई जाती हैं जहाँ पर क्या है इनकम ज़्यादा होती है और उसको लोग गर्व के साथ बताते हैं। और उनके बच्चों का, परिवार का आप रहन सहन देखिए, उनके जो बोलने का ढंग देखिए, और क्या है गर्व करते हैं वो लोग, और इस चीज़ पर जो है उन्हें अहंकार होता है, या फिर हम कहें कि वो दर्प जिसे कहेंगे कि इतनी जो है कमाई हमारे ऊपर की है। किसी भी अगर आप नाम लेते हैं, अच्छा इस फील्ड में तो जो है अरे बहुत ऊपर का आता होगा, यानी कि आज वो चीज़ क्या है शोभनीय हो गई है। इसी का वर्णन जो है हरिशंकर परसाई ने किया है। और उस जो बदलते हुआ जो समाज है, उसके जो बदलते हुए जो मूल्य हैं उनका चित्रण यहाँ पर किया है। तो नारद जी कहते हैं कि क्या जो है तो आपको जो है पेंशन अभी तक क्यों नहीं मिली है? तो कहते हैं कि साहब जब भी देने के लिए जाते हैं, कितनी अर्जियां मेरे पति ने इतने सालों में लगाई हैं और इसी के चलते ये हालत हो गई है कि फाके मरने की नौबत आ गई और उनको जो है उन्होंने एक दिन ऐसे ही अपनी देह त्याग दी। तो कुछ कुछ नारद मुनि समझ जाते हैं। फिर कहते हैं कि अच्छा ये बताइए, आपके अलावा उनका किससे किससे लगाव था? बोले किससे का क्या मतलब? अरे रे, मैं पूछना चाह रहा हूँ कहीं किसी दूसरी महिला से तो उनका कुछ नहीं था? आप कैसी बात कर रहे हो नारद जी? आपको शर्म आनी चाहिए। आप इस तरीके से आप कैसे बोल सकते हो? मैं एक पतिव्रता नारी हूँ और ऐसा अपने पति के बारे में सोचना भी मेरे लिए पाप है। आप ऐसा जो है आपको ऐसा नहीं बोलना चाहिए। मेरे मरे हुए पति को आप कलंकित मत कीजिए और इस तरह की बात आप मुझसे मत न करें तो ही आप मेरे लिए अच्छा है। आप तो अच्छे से साधु महात्मा लग रहे हैं और आपकी ऐसी इस तरीके की बात करने का तरीका है। पत्नी को बड़ा गुस्सा आता है कि कोई उसके पति को के बारे में ऐसे सवाल भी करे। यही तो होता है सामान्यतः। हमारे जो भारतीय नारी है, एक आदर्श नारी को इसी तरीके से देखा जाता है कि उसको जो है अपने पति पर पूर्णतः पूरा विश्वास करना चाहिए। ये जो एक व्यंग्य के रूप में जो है यहाँ पर हरिशंकर प्रसाई ने इस चीज़ को रखा है कि जो है एक आदर्श नारी ऐसी ही होती है। वह मेरा भाई अच्छा है, मेरा पति अच्छा है, मेरा पिता अच्छा है, उनसे सर्वश्रेष्ठ उन्हें कोई नहीं लगता है। तो कई बार सवाल उठते भी हैं और कि अगर सब पुरुष, कोई ना कोई पुरुष किसी का भाई है, किसी का पिता भी है और किसी ना किसी का पति भी है, अगर सभी इतने अच्छे हैं तो ये सारी चीज़ें क्यों घटित हो रही हैं? यहाँ पर दोहरा अर्थ हरिशंकर प्रसाई ने अपनी कहानी में रखा है, जो एक हास्य का पुट भी अपने अंदर समाहित किए हुए है। तो फिर नारद मुनि सोचते हैं कि आखिर भोला राम का जीव गया कहाँ? कैसे ढूंढूं मैं उसे? मुझे जाकर जो है धर्मराज चंद्रगुप्त को जाके मुझे तो जो है जवाब देना है। अब यमराज तो फेल हो गया, लेकिन मुझे किसी ना किसी तरीके से इस मामले की तह में जाना ही पड़ेगा कि आखिर भोला राम गया कहाँ। और वह चल पड़ते हैं उसके ऑफिस की तरफ, जहाँ पर जो है भोला राम जहाँ पे नौकरी करते थे, जहाँ पर भोला राम जो है भोला राम के पेंशन से संबंधित कागजात थे। और वहाँ पर जब पहुँचते हैं तो देखते हैं कि चपरासी इधर उधर चक्कर लगा रहा है। वो एक के पास जाते, साहब ये सरकारी काम है, इतने आसानी से नहीं होगा, फाइल पे वजन रखिए। बोले वजन? वजन का क्या मतलब है? बोले वजन का मतलब है कि कुछ ले दिए दीजिए तो काम फाइलें आगे बढ़ेंगी, वरना वो एक फाइल नहीं है, वर्षों से फाइलें इधर से उधर घूमती रहती हैं। तो फिर नारद जी जो है नहीं समझ पाते। तो फिर क्या है कि वो जो चपरासी जो होते हैं वो आते हैं उनके पास और कहते हैं हाँ आप तो दिखने में तो साधु महात्मा लग रहे हैं, आखिर है क्या? तो वह जाते हैं और जाने के बाद जो वो कहते हैं कि ठीक आप बड़े साहब से मिलिए और वहीं से आपकी समस्या का हल हो सकता है। तो सबसे पहले उसके बाद जो है हाँ, लेकिन ये बात किसी को कहिएगा नहीं कि मैंने आपको अंदर भेजा है और मैं बाहर घूमता रहूँगा, जिसके चलते क्या है आपको कोई मना नहीं करेगा। चपरासी का दिल पसीजता है और जब भटकते हुए नारद मुनि को वो अंदर भेज देते हैं। अंदर में बैठे हुए हैं बड़े अफसर और जो है वो बोलते हैं हाँ आइए आइए, आप देखने से तो साधु महात्मा लग रहे हैं, बोलिए क्या बात है? तो कह रहे हैं कि ऐसे ऐसे मैं भोला राम की जो फाइल है उससे संबंधित जो है पूछने आया हूँ। क्या पूछने आए हो? ऐसे इतना आसान थोड़ी होता है भोला जो है कि किसी भी फाइल को, यहाँ पे हजारों फाइलें हैं और मैं आपकी फाइल को फिर मैं निकालूं क्यों? इसके पीछे मुझे क्या मिलेगा? बोले आपको क्या मिलेगा, क्या चाहिए आपको? बोले कि अच्छा ठीक है, जो तुम्हारे पास ये वीणा है इससे मेरी बेटी जो है वो खेल लेगी, या उसको जो है म्यूजिक का उसको शौक है, तो वह है आप मुझे यह दे दीजिए। फिर मजबूरन नारद जी को जो है वह जो अपनी वीणा रखनी पड़ती है। उसके बाद जो है फ़ोन करते हैं, एकदम से घंटी बजाते हैं। घंटी बजने के बाद जो है आप बाहर से आते हैं कि बोलिए साहब। बोले कि ठीक है, जल्दी जल्दी से फ़ोन घुमाए। और उसके बाद से एक एक करके सब लोगों को बुलाया जाता है। और जब बुलाया जाता है तो जैसे तैसे करके जो है फाइल आती है। और फाइल जब आती है तो उसमें कहते हैं कि अच्छा भोला राम ने इतनी अर्जियां लगाई थी, पूरी भरी हुई जो फाइल जिसमें अर्जियों से पूरी भरी हुई थी वह फाइल आती है तो उसका जो है वह है खोलने लगते हैं। तो कहते हैं कि अच्छा इतने दिन हो गए हैं, इतने पेंशन के पैसे हो गए हैं। और उसके बाद से जो है जैसे ही जो है जो अधिकारी है वह बोलता है इसमें तो ये चीज़ें हैं, और जो तुरंत फिर कहते हैं साहब ये मेरे जीवन की जो है इतनी पूंजी हो गई है, एकदम से नारद मुनि चौंक पड़ते हैं। फाइल के अंदर से आवाज आ रही है। फाइल के अंदर से कौन बोला है? यानी कि भोला राम का जीव यहाँ पे छुपा हुआ है। तो कहते, अरे भोला राम, तुम यहाँ क्या कर रहे हो? बोले, साहब मैंने चप्पल घिस घिस के जो है इतने सालों तक नौकरी की, आज जो है मेरे घर में फाके की नौबत आ गई। मेरी ही की हुई मेहनत और जो है वो आज किस तरीके से दब के जो रह गई है, और जो है आज मुझे मेरी पेंशन आज तक नहीं मिली है, और जिसके कारण जो है मैं इसको छोड़कर मैं कहीं नहीं जाऊंगा। एक इंसान जब दुनिया से चला भी जाता है तब भी उसके अंतर मन में एक पूरे तंत्र के प्रति जो है वो किस प्रकार का आक्रोश रहता है। जीवन भर वह जहाँ पे कार्य करता है, जहाँ पर जो रह के वो जो है अपने जीवन को आयाम देता है, पूरा जीवन जो है समर्पित कर देता है, वैसी ही संस्थानों में उसी के लिए किस प्रकार का जो है एक ऐसा सिस्टम बना हुआ है। इस व्यंग्य के रूप में जो है हरिशंकर परसाई ने अपनी इस कहानी के माध्यम से दिखाया है। और जब सत्य निकल के जब सामने आता है, सामान्य जो है मनुष्य का भी कहा जाता है कि कोई ना कोई इसकी इच्छा जो है वह रह जाती है, ऐसी जो उसकी किसी भी प्रकार से वह चाहता है और पूरी नहीं होती है। एक जो है इसमें एक व्यंग्य है, इसमें एक भाव है, और इसमें साथ साथ सबसे ज़्यादा कटाक्ष है। किसके ऊपर? वजन। फाइल पे वजन रखिए साहब। और ये वजन के चक्कर में किस तरीके से जो है लोगों के काम रह जाते हैं। कहीं हम भी तो उस वजन का हिस्सा नहीं है, कहीं हम भी तो उसी तंत्र के जो है प्रमुख पात्र नहीं है। ऐसे बहुत से सवालों को हरिशंकर परसाई ने इस कहानी के माध्यम से रखा है। यह जो कहानी है, यह भारतीय समाज में जो मूल रूप से जो सामाजिक परिवेश है, और सामाजिक परिवेश में जो सरकारी जो तंत्र है, उस तंत्र को इस कहानी में जो है हरिशंकर परसाई ने दिखाया है। जगह जगह पर जो है व्यंग्य के पुट दिए हैं। क्या कहते हैं, जो है बीच बीच में जो है नारद मुनि के माध्यम से जो है वह कुछ कुछ बातें कहलवाते हैं। उस समय पे जब नारद मुनि पूरे जो ऑफिस में जब घूम रहे हैं, आते हैं लोग, चपरासी के पास जाना हो या फिर जो क्लर्क के पास जाना हो, फाइलों का इधर से इधर करना हो, आते हुए उनकी बदहास जो हालतें हैं, मजाक हो, एक फ़ोन करते हैं, हाँ 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 करके रख दिया जाता है। एक के बाद जो है एक ही चीज़, छोटी सी चीज़ के लिए वो है 4-4 घंटे, 4-4 दिन और 4-4 महीने, उसके बाद 4-4 साल निकलते चले जाते हैं। और हम कहते हैं कि जो है हम जो है क्या है कि एक इंसान भी कहलाने के लायक हैं। जहाँ से जिस तंत्र में हम काम करते हैं, जिस तंत्र में हम रहते हैं, जिससे हमारे परिवार पलते हैं, जिससे हमारा घर चलता है, जिस ओहदे से हमारे नाम, हमारा रुतबा है, उसके प्रति हम कितने वफादार हैं। जो कार्य हमें मिला है, क्या हम उससे न्याय कर पा रहे हैं? और अगर हम न्याय नहीं कर पा रहे हैं तो क्या हमें वहाँ पर रहने का हक है, या फिर प्रफुल्लित होकर रहने का हक है? यानी कि किस प्रकार से नैतिक स्तर गिरता जा रहा है, और कौन कौन सी जो है चीज़ें हैं जो उस पूरे तंत्र को खोखला करती जा रही हैं। इन सारे मुद्दों को जो है हरिशंकर परसाई ने इस कहानी के माध्यम से रखा है। यह कहानी भारतीय समाज का एक ऐसा अक्ष है जिसको हमें पूरे समाज को देखने की आवश्यकता है। भोला राम का जीव कहानी एक आम आदमी की कहानी है, एक सामान्य इंसान की कहानी है, जो बहुत से जो है सवाल हमारे सामने छोड़ के जाती है, और बहुत सी चीज़ों को स्पष्ट कर रही है कि रिश्वतखोरी से जो है हम मान सम्मान जो हम पा रहे हैं, वह आखिर कितने दिन का है? वह सम्मान क्या सम्मान है? और उस सम्मान के माध्यम से हमें कौन सी आत्मिक खुशी मिलती है? अगर आत्मिक खुशी नहीं मिलती है तो हम किस लिए, जिस शरीर को एक दिन, जिस मानव को एक दिन मिट्टी ही बनना है, वह कौन सी चीज़ों के लिए लगा हुआ है? ये सारे बहुत से जो सवाल थे इस कहानी के माध्यम से हरिशंकर परसाई ने हम सबके सामने रखे हैं।